Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to this seminar in the Peking University School of Transnational Law, 北京大学国际法学院 Law and Humanities Seminar Series. My name is Norman Ho, and I teach here at the law school. For those of you who do not know, our law school is also called STL for short, S School T Transnational L Law. We're very privileged today to have as our guest speaker Professor Kyung Park, who serves as professor of law at Korea University Law School. He teaches and writes in the areas, in various areas, including internet law, intellectual property, constitutional law. And he is the co-founder and director of OpenNet, which is a digital rights advocacy organization in Korea. He also has served as commissioner at the Korean Communication Standards Commission, which is a presidentially appointed internet content regulatory body in South Korea. At Korea University, he also founded the Law Review there, as well as the law school's Clinical Legal Education Center. Professor Park is also an experienced practitioner. He has practiced as a litigator earlier in his career, focusing on public interest litigation, and also has done transactional work, working at law firms in South Korea. So I think he's quite rare in the sense that somebody who has both litigation experience as well as transactional experience. And today, Professor Park will speak to us on the topic of network usage fee debate and net neutrality. He will speak for about 40 minutes, after which we will open the floor for questions, both in person and on Zoom. I would like to give the floor now to Professor Park. Thank you.
Thank you for the kind introduction and, of course, invitation to this event. That's my coordinates. In case you like what you hear today and want to get in touch with me, you can use the information. So let's think about this. Internet. Now, only like early 90s, before the internet has arrived, we had to pay, for example, $2 per minute for international phone calls, even with just one person. So if you have a conversation for 10 minutes, you have to pay like $20 or so, even for one phone call with one person. With the internet, you can be on a video conference with hundreds, not just 100, but hundreds of people for hours for practically free. And you get to choose who you want to speak with. The communication is done on any-to-any basis. And this is possible among billions of computers. Billions of computers. So if you want to, there are like billions of computers hosting contents that you can choose to visit. I mean, a visit is really a metaphor. Like when you visit a website, what you're really doing is you are sending a request for the content on the server, and the server computer sends you a copy of the content all the way through the internet. So the question is, how is this possible? How can, after the internet, the billions of people on computers talk to one another for practically free, not just for free financially, but also free in terms of what they want to hear, what they want to speak. Now, one easy way to connect, one easy way to achieve this one each way to achieve this is to connect everyone directly, like in the diagram, the diagram in the middle. There, if you think each green ball is a person, then each green ball has direct connection with all other green ball, all other green balls. So any one person can choose to talk to all others simultaneously while others are doing the same thing. But this is prohibitively expensive, right? Yes, you can view the contents hosted on billions of computers right now. But imagine that you have billions of lines connected to your computer. Your room is not that large, right? And you cannot do that to all billions of people. So what happened? How was this made possible? What made the internet possible is a promise and science. The promise is, if you look at the cartoon on the right, you see villagers lined up from the water source to the burning house. They all came out voluntarily and carrying one bucket of water at a time to the next person. And you can think of each bucket of water as data packet. So do villagers come out on some condition? Do villagers come out to be paid? No, they come out voluntarily because anyone's house can be hit by fire. So let's just help each other without putting any condition. Just like that, on the internet, anyone can be a sender of traffic. So let's not charge each other for data delivery. That $2 per minute, the phone bill that you had to pay, we all decided that, let's not charge each other that data delivery cost. So everybody has agreed to this promise that they'll deliver all messages sent by or destined to anyone to an immediate neighbor, one notch closer to the destination. So that's the promise part. The end result is that as long as everybody is maintaining the connection. Now, maintaining the connection requires some amount of money. That's the internet access fee that you are paying at home, which is really a small amount compared to the phone bills that you are paying pre-internet. Everybody, as long as everybody is paying to connect, no one is paying to send or receive data. That's how the internet has financed the data delivery cost for everybody, where every one person of the billions is choosing to speak, communicate with everyone else of the same billion people. Now, you will think that even delivering all that data will cost money, but this is the science part. Data propagation on the internet is done through electromagnetic waves, which is like light, right? You'll try to remember from your high school physics. Electromagnetic waves through wires. It's the same as what you see through your eyes right now. So data propagation can be done by having light signals be reflected off mirrors, like the cartoon on the right side. Now, having lights go through or having lights get reflected off the mirrors, or travel through the air, or the vacuum, doesn't cost any money, doesn't require any energy, doesn't spend any energy. So this is the science part. So as long as this promise is kept and the science is there, and that the science is always there, we can enjoy this information revolution. So just to illustrate more clearly how the promise is working out, think about holding your birthday party, and you want to invite everyone, but you don't know everybody, right? What's the solution? You can ask other people. You can ask the people that you know to introduce the people that they know, right? And if you can do that with a sufficient number of people that you already know, right? If you can do that with your enough acquaintances, and those acquaintances are willing to crowdsource their connections, then you can, yes, invite everybody. But why would everybody do that? Why would everybody do that, right? Well, because they'll also have their own birthday parties, and other people will chip in with their connections, so that the end result is that everyone can invite everyone else during everyone's birthday party. So that is the promise part of how the information revolution was made possible. Now, what if one decides not to deliver the party message to others because, what if one of your acquaintances, right, does not deliver the party message to his or her acquaintance because he or she does not like the host, me, right? Then or decides to deliver only to a few, not all his or her acquaintances, but just a few, or decides to charge money for delivery, then everybody else will now feel, scammed. Will feel like, oh, I shared all my connections so that everyone can invite everyone else for their birthday parties, but you are not sharing your connections, then I'll stop sharing mine also, right? Now that will break down, the internet. So the rule of net neutrality was born. So networks should be neutral too, meaning networks should not discriminate traffic on basis of a content, sender, receiver, device, application, or even payment. Network cannot refuse traffic just because it's from us, just because it contains certain content, or just because it's from some sender, or just because it has not been paid for. Because remember, according to the promise that I talked about, there is no payment for data delivery. There is only payment for connection. That is net neutrality. Now, just to illustrate a little more why this promise is sustainable, or why the converse of this promise is unsustainable. This is trace route. You can do trace route now. This is a feature on the computer that tracks where the messages come from, or how content on your screen arrives from the source to your screen. So trace route to opennetkorea.org. So from a certain computer, I logged in on opennetkorea.org, which is the homepage of the NGO that I'm leading. And the computer gives you this map of how many computers it went through to arrive at my computer. So my computer was in Korea. My computer was in Korea. Well, let me see. No, my computer was in my computer was in California, and opennetkorea.org, the server is in Korea, and between Korea and California, it has to go through 26 computers. It has to go through 26 routers. And you can see that it has to go through multiple, what we call internet service providers, Cox, Cogent, and Amazon. Now, imagine that everybody, so every time you view on online content, this happens. If you visit 100 websites, for each of the websites, this is happening. And imagine that all these different ISPs try to charge one another for delivering for part of the segment, for delivering the segment of this route. The transactional cost of charging each other will just break down the system. That's why we decided not to charge for delivery. Now, as a result, the internet came to have a destiny for innovation and democracy, because everyone has chance to spread his or her message to everyone else without having to worry about the cost or risk of data delivery. The white statutes of student protesters in Korea, they are in some democracy museum in Korea. This was before 1980, before Korea was democratized, and they had to, manually make these leaflets promoting demonstrations, and they had to risk their lives in passing out these leaflets. Now, we don't need to do that anymore. Now, people just, put online announcement of a protest, and people just gather. That's why you see so many. That's how you see so many massive protests in Korea. During impeachment, etc. So that's one, and also through this network, so many different apps, so many different ideas are exchanged and explored toward maximum innovation that is possible. So net neutrality needs to be defended to continue the information revolution and not regress to the world of telephony or postage, where people communicating had to pay for the data delivery cost. So in the end, this is how the internet works. Now, some have, do you remember the party? Do you remember the story about planning a party? Of course, some friends have more friends than others, right? Now, those friends began to charge other friends, not for delivering birthday message, but just for maintaining, just for keeping the relationship, but very, very small amount. They are called internet access providers. So you see there are 4 ISPs at the bottom. I put 3 ISPs. So each pentagon is a network maintained by one ISP, and there are 3 ISPs for the US because it's bigger. I put 1 ISP for Korea, and they basically promise to the computers on their network or the users on network that they'll somehow maintain connection with others, right? So that each of their customer can access to all other computers around the world. So that that relationship, right? Charging in exchange for promise to maintaining connection, not directly, but indirectly, to all computers around the world is called transit. And so I'm just showing this just to let you know the spelling, transit. And the other relationship that developed is instead of without making any promise about connections to other computers, just exchanging traffic, exchanging data between the two, that's called peering. Okay, again, that's the spelling. And on this is kind of a miniature simplified vision or picture of the internet. And you can see that you see this blue, light blue line here between Netflix server and ISP2, the network operator of Korea. And between the two, Netflix just sends the data to ISP2 without really expecting that ISP2 will spread. ISP2 will somehow get the Netflix data to computers in other parts of the world. That's the peering relationship. And for this peering relationship, because this is mutually beneficial, because ISP2, to satisfy their customers, they need Netflix traffic. So instead of getting the traffic through this roundabout way, ISP2 can get Netflix traffic directly. So usually there's no change of money. So it is through transit and peering that all the computers around the world communicate with one another. And again, this diagram shows the contrast between transit and peering. So if you so this Korean provider, KakaoTalk, gets transit from this Korean ISP, then KakaoTalk messages can be spread to all other computers around the world. So that's transit. For peering, this Facebook cache server has a peering relationship with the Korean ISP, then all the access that Facebook cache server gets is the computers within the ISP's network. That's peering. So ISP2 doesn't deliver to outside the network. Now, that's how the internet works, okay? Or has worked. Now, there is a proposal for network usage fee in Korea, which is really based on sender pay rule, which means whoever is sending the data has to pay. Just like telephone or postal mail. And this idea has attracted enough policymakers around the world that Europe is also thinking about doing this. And this, of course, is diametrically opposed, contrary to how the internet has successfully financed the data delivery cost among billions of computers. And this sender pay rule is what I'm going to talk about, and whether this is good for the internet, and whether it is, to answer the question, we don't need to look far, because in 2016, Korea already instituted sender pay rule, but only among internet service providers. So among internet service providers, whoever is sending the data to another has to pay the receiver for receiving that data. Now, guess what happened? And then in 2020, Korean ISPs, internet service providers, began to want to charge network usage fee. And that debate was related to the dispute between SK Telecom, Korea's #1 internet service provider, and Netflix. And we'll talk about that. Now, what happened in 2016 when sender pay rule was instituted? Now, this is Korea. There are 3 ISPs and 3 networks. ISP 1 has their own network and hosts Facebook's cache server. ISP 2 hosts Naver's server and has its own network. And ISP 3 has its own network as well. And 3 ISPs exchange data. Now, once the rule was instituted that whoever is sending more data to the other has to pay the receiver. Now, let's say Facebook content was really popular, right? The content of Facebook is really popular among all Korean users. Who will be paying who? Can anyone guess? If Facebook becomes popular, what's the direction of data among ISPs? Because Facebook server is hosted on ISP 1, a lot of data will be pulled from ISP 1 pulled from ISP 1 to who? To the users on ISP 2 and ISP 3, right? Because the users on ISP 2, ISP 3, they are also Koreans and they like Facebook, so they'll request Facebook data. So a lot of data will leave ISP 1 toward ISP 2 and ISP 3. Yes, but a lot of times what you are uploading is minuscule compared to what you are downloading. Yeah. So what ends up happening is ISP 1 has to pay a lot of money to ISP 2 and ISP 3 for what? For hosting Facebook. What it means is if you are hosting popular content, right? Like even if you are hosting popular influencer, right? Whose data is sought for by a lot of other people on other networks, you have to pay, which means now there is no competition among the ISPs, among internet service providers to host popular content. Now, now with no competition among them, I mean, ISP's job is to sell internet access, meaning ISP's job is to put people and companies on their network. That's how they make money. But if ISPs host popular content, they start losing money. So what do? Well, now they charge, they can afford to charge a lot of money for hosting contents because now there's no competition. No ISP wants to host popular content. So because of that, the transit price, the money that the ISP charge for promising connection with all other computers around the whole world. Remember this diagram, right? This is the whole of the internet, and the transit at the top. Transit is at the top, and at the top, you get to connect with all other communicate with all other computers. The transit prices went up. The Korea's transit prices went up to 8 times Paris, 6 times London, 4 times New York, 4 times LA, Singapore, Tokyo. So, Korea became just so expensive to access the internet. The trend continued to 2021, where the Seoul's transit fee is 8 times London and 10 times Frankfurt. And guess what? Because of this, Korean video services could no longer maintain quality, high quality video, because the internet access fees or transit fees, the same thing, they just had to pay too much. So in 2017, Africa TV, which is biggest, YouTube in Korea, had to pay internet access fees equal to their profit. 2021, Watcha, the domestic video service like Amazon, had to pay 10% of their revenue as internet access fees. And 2019, 2021, COVID-19 apps, these are publicly interested apps, right? They could not meet the demand because of high internet access fees. And because these transit fees went up, now the Korean ISPs could now charge money for accepting data from foreign content providers as well. So the Twitch, the famous game platform, they pulled out of Korea market, saying they cannot afford to pay to connect with the Korean ISPs. Remember, it's like Netflix server, the blue line here in Netflix server. When Netflix server feed data directly to Korean ISP, there was no payment. And same thing with the Twitch. Well, I mean, Twitch paid a little bit because they were a small guy, but this was useful for. This was beneficial for Korean ISPs too, because the Korean ISPs didn't have to pay money to higher tier ISPs to keep their promise to the customers that the customers' computers will be communicating with all other computers around the world. So it had a direct financial benefit. So for maintaining that connection, no money was required. But after the 2016 standard pay rule was instituted, the market price of transit affected the peering relationship. So the peering fees went up so high. So Cloudflare, which is the commercial CDN, what CDN does is they take your data and put near where it's mostly needed. Okay, just remember that CDN does the CDN has their technology of kind of predicting where your data will be mostly sought for, and they put it, they make a copy of it and put it near where it's hotly sought for, so that your data can be easily accessed by people around the world. And according to Cloudflare, so Cloudflare, because of this benefit for everybody, Cloudflare has been welcomed by all countries, without being charged a lot of money. But Korean ISPs have demanded so much money for connecting that Cloudflare just cannot provide this mutually beneficial service in Korea. And because of that, this is a latency rate. Latency is not the speed, because all signals travel at the speed of light, so speed is the same. But when does the data begin to arrive? That's latency. And if you look at the comparison, Korea has the worst latency among all 20 to 30 OECD countries. It is because the CDNs could not provide service for Korea. So this shows that the sender pay rule has really failed Korea. It really hurt the Korean internet economy. Now, some people say that sender pay rule is makes sense, because whoever is sending more data, must pay for building the network. But if you look at how the internet access is done, no matter how much you try to use, you cannot use more than the capacity that's already established. And you are already paying for connection, right? You are not paying for delivery, but you are paying for connection, not big amount, small amount. And as long as everybody's paying to connect, nobody needs to pay to send or receive data. That is how the internet is done. So no matter how much you try to use, send or receive, you cannot use more than the capacity of the connection that you are already paying for. So the idea that the more traffic you send, you are causing congestion, that's just not true, because as long as the ISP is providing sufficient regional connection, so 50 megabyte per second for that town, serving 5 houses with 10 Mbps each, there is no congestion possible, because not any one of the houses can use more than 10 Mbps. Now, then when does congestion happen? Because congestions do happen. Well, that's because ISPs fail to provide enough regional line to deliver the promised 10 Mbps per house. With 30, you cannot provide 10 Mbps per house to 5 houses. And this is why, if you look at the graph, through the 4 years of the pandemic, the traffic increased 5 times, right? The traffic increased 5 times. And yet, the network maintenance cost, even including the CAPEX, the capital expenditure, has remained the same. So the argument that the sender has to be responsible somehow for the increased cost really does not make sense. So, how much more time do I have? 5 minutes. Okay, all right, that's a good time. Let me talk about the debate between Netflix and SK Broadband. Now, despite this lesson of the sender pay rule of 2016, South Korean government and now European government are still thinking about network usage fee, meaning the sender has to pay for use of the network. Now, even before it was made into law, SK Telecom had a dispute with the Netflix. SK Telecom is the Korea's #1 internet service provider, and there was a dispute between SK Telecom and Netflix. So to simplify the dispute, I wrote it as a dialogue. So SK Broadband is a subsidiary of SK Telecom. SK Broadband said, "Oh, give me money because you are sending me a lot of traffic." But the Netflix answer is, it doesn't cost anything, right? Because to run a Netflix title at home, it requires only 5 megabytes per second. At your home to watch Netflix, probably your home internet is what? This is Shenzhen. I mean, the world's capital of technology. So probably you have like at least 200 Mbps at home or 500 Mbps. Probably some of you have 1 gig BPS, right? You don't need all of that to watch Netflix. To watch one Netflix title, you just need 5 Mbps. If you have 100 Mbps, I mean, in Korea, average, you get 200 Mbps. With 200 Mbps, you can watch 40 Netflix titles simultaneously, right? That's just enough. That's just enough capacity for you. So Netflix filed a lawsuit against SK Broadband, asking the court to please declare, I don't owe SK Broadband anything for sending data their way. Now, court said, this was a little surprise, network is not free. We cannot force another to accept your data. So a lot of people think that Netflix lost in the lawsuit. But if you actually read the judgment, no, Netflix didn't lose. It says, the court says, network is not free and you cannot force another to accept the data. But the court says you can pay in kind by providing cache server network. Now, that's exactly what Netflix was doing already. See, Netflix, so this is the kind of simplified vision of the internet. For Netflix server here, right? Without this light blue line here, the Netflix data for people in Korea to watch Netflix, the data had to come here, there, and then come to home, right? Now, because this will cause a lot of latency, the Netflix put a copy of their data right here in Korea, right? So that it doesn't have to go all the way up here like this. And because Netflix is not dynamic data, static data, meaning, Netflix content is always the same. Now, other services, other global services, their data constantly changes. Like Facebook data, it constantly changes because people upload things. But Netflix, it's easy to make a copy and put it physically inside the Korea, and that's what Netflix has been doing. So that is not really the. So what the court was saying was that Netflix really is already paying for the use of the network if there is such a thing. So that is kind of how the internet has been run or has financed the data delivery cost that has revolutionized all people's communication life or communicative lives. And I try to show you how departure from that rule, the promise, the science will really hurt internet ecosystem everywhere. And that rule has been enshrined in the rule of network neutrality. And the policymakers around the world try to learn from Korea's lesson, Korea's bad lesson with a bad experience with the sender payroll. That's it. Thank you for listening. Thank you.